Good morning, good morning, good morning. Howdy. Alright. Today I will be talking a little bit to you guys about swords and their usefulness in reality versus the concepts that are displayed in popular media. This is not very long and I don't really have much to say. I just wanted to get across certain concepts. Now, I had this friend called Ryan, and he loved anime. And in anime, there's something that I like to call a katana. Now, katanas are a curved sword, and they have a limited usefulness because of this curve. The curve is used for dragging across objects while moving at high speed. This is achieved by being on horseback. They're a cavalry saber. Now, this is going to be a theme that I'm going to go back to when it comes to the other image that I had open. See, the thing is, a lot of people who watch too much anime, which is just entertainment for Asians that are just, taking whatever's around them and making it slightly more interesting, they think that there's this concept even amongst Asians, like as if they would actually use a cavalry saber in a regular ground war situation, but they wouldn't. A cavalry saber is curved like that because as you ride past someone, it drags across their form, cutting more easily. There's a test that's been done by multiple people, but let me just say that there's a TV show with Emerald E. Ermley, or whatever the fuck that guy's name was, who did not have many military decorations and was in fact a pack mule soldier who never saw combat, and that's probably the only reason he's alive, because most people died in these various wars. So regardless of that, the point is this: a cavalry saber is best, the example was a sandbag. When riding past, it'll cut all the way across and through it the material much easier than a regular sword, which won't do much at all. The problem here being that when you see a samurai sword in media, they imagine that samurais are somehow ground men who are ultimate warriors, when they are not. They are not the equivalency of knights. They are the equivalency of cavalry soldiers in the Civil War. Here is a Civil War cavalry saber. You'll notice as a different design, but the same curved edge. And, a shorter handle, but the end result is the same. As you move past, the cut is superior. Standing still, the cut is mediocre or okay, whatever, but it's not exactly the best for that. So, what am I trying to get across here? Well, there's a lot of people that act like this katana, for example, you see here, is folded 1,000 times, which is not true. It is not folded that many times at all. You could say that some sort of concept of mathematics makes it the equivalency of folded that many times due to the way metal is hammered or something. I don't remember quite what it was, but it's not folded 1,000 times. Folding metal that many times makes it inferior because you need an even distribution of other metals, and you don't need them too finely particularized or refined to a certain extent. There's this whole, manufacturing standards videos you can watch about what makes the best flexible but also hard steel. And it's not the amount of folds and rehammerings that make it that. It's about the mineral content in the first place, the proper, setup and the proper heating, and not forging it too many times. So the issue here is that there was another test during that stupid video where they fired a bunch of bullets at a broadsword. This is why I think Emily Ermley is an idiot, and so are most people. And a broadsword, you have to realize, like a hand-and-a-half sword, for example, is the most common type of broadsword. There's claymores, which have a bigger, wider blade. They're designed for actual hand-to-hand combat in periods where people did that. And they have this thick, enormous tang in the middle that makes it to where you can resharpen the edges. They're not going to break. They're heavier, of course, though. And so that makes them, you have to train to use these type of swords quite a bit. They usually train by just using them and swinging them at pieces of wood and different things. And, I don't know. You see it in a lot of media, stupid dorky hay bales that are dressed up like scarecrows. I don't know, what the proper method particularly is for longevity. But this is the sword that they were firing bullets at. It's not a fair comparison to fire bullets at a katana and see how many it'll cut in comparison to a thick hand and a half sword or something like this, when you should be comparing it to a rapier to even get the test to be accurate. And it seems like everybody is some sort of bizarre retard that wants to err on the side of European/Northern sword making being better than Asian in general. But the same base concepts apply worldwide of the usefulness and practicality of swords. So there are Asian swords that are straight swords. Some of them are used by fishermen to cut really large fish, like my brother knows a lot about. If you have any insight, you can voice it now or continue talking.
Yeah, sure. The swords they use for cutting fish are much better for cutting someone in half, for example. They're longer, they're straight. The end is slightly angled while being straighter, all like a giant cleaver. There's grips on the handle more indented and in a pattern for gripping, and with the leading hand closer to the pommel and the other hand near the back, twisting more with less grip points so that you can maneuver with powerful strokes. This would be somebody who's elite strength versus a regular soldier. Someone like a fisherman who's much stronger than a soldier. They are much more deadly because they are stronger. They are much more deadly because they have swords that can cut things in half much easier, and they can wield them with precision. Yeah. Strength and finesse together means that you can kill everyone.
When it comes to swords and armor.
Exactly.
Now, the concept here is you'd say, oh man, but surely medieval periods have some sort of equivalency, correct? Yeah, well they do, but it depends upon each culture what it's called, and that's why, because of this pop culture thing in movies and stuff, you don't really see the larger swords. But everybody's so obsessed with Asians that you'll see their fish swords, you'll see their miniature daggers, you'll see anything for any purpose out of Asian cultures. But you won't see the same end result when it comes to European, even North American swords. Because everybody likes to act like as if somehow they're not of any interest because they haven't been shown off in a movie decimating armies or doing overly dramatic things.
Yeah, there's this stupid Final Fantasy or anything else you want to mention where they're wearing mysterious clothing that looks like a mixture of different areas around Asia as well, and they're using giant swords where the pommel's regular size and there's an enormous cleaver piece sticking out forever. They're always in silhouette with their sword and stupid and huge.
Exactly.
So, like, that's a totally over-exaggerated concept of, usually those are more towards the Middle East, those type of swords that they're showing off in Asian culture, even.
Because Asians are a fan of Middle Eastern culture, Persian culture, and etc. Americans are a fan of Asian culture to too much of an extent. Some Asians are a fan of American Western culture with the cowboy hats and the boots and things. And it's all a big circle of being a fan of other people's movies because they're different and foreign and the landscape is, rather than a fan of realities. So what I'd like to move on to is talk about the practicality of what somebody would use. Is a katana practical if you needed to defend yourself from a wild animal like an angry bear that was going to rip your cock off or something? I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just telling you, somewhat, but due to the curved nature of it and the fact that they say, because it's a little bit strange an angle already, you kind of have to have training for it, and that's not that useful. It's the same as a cavalry saber. You'd be surprised how much finesse you have to use these curved swords. So
yeah,
what would I recommend to somebody? Well, a hand and a half sword is too weak for their little white sugar bones and corn syrup eating asses.
Yeah, it's too big for them.
I'd recommend for almost anyone a traditional style rapier in a simple method like this. This would treat you much better if, some angry puma was trying to eat your face than any of these other weapons in this lineup.
Well, yeah, because the straight weapon, people like, for example, Brad Pitt tried to run up and down some stairs backwards like everybody else. And what he found is instead of, facing the direction of, like, so that if he's running down the stairs, it's like he's facing away from running down the stairs. Instead, if you turn around and try to run up the stairs backwards that way, well, he found that he started falling, kind of forward. Then he tries to overcompensate backwards. So he's going to slam his, backside into the hard stairs. So then his spine automatically starts to twist and panic one way as he spins around to try to get his hand in there somehow, as it's far too late to, like, save his spine or ass from getting hurt. So then instead his shoulder and face hits into the hard wooden stair edge and it splits his chin. And I never heard about this before now. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because he, like everybody else, even though he supposedly, can do physical things, he feels no connection between his legs and his upper body. And so what that means is, when, say, you're using a sword and it's too complicated, it's boingy, or it has a weird curve or anything, it doesn't matter. You're stupid, and you need to see that laser line of that sword and that simple grip and, protective pommel like that. This is a good example. And then you can just always learn to poke with it and kind of slash, and that's it. That's it. That's 99% of anybody who was a warrior in the ancient past. They just use this anyways. They don't learn infinite fancy bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not useful.
And if somebody really fucks up and they also have a rapier, you see these loops here. That's in case, it just automatically happens. The ones above and below.
Yeah.
If they miss, like going after your hand and their sword goes through it, then you can jerk and snap the end of their blade or some part of the length of their blade using it, and you don't have to do anything because it just gets caught and then you break it off.
Yeah, and if somebody realizes that's happened, they were trained to simply let go of their blade and try to tackle you basically in that moment because they're doomed.
Or, if you have a dagger sidearm, which is long enough.
Yeah, or reach for their dagger and try to stab you.
Yeah, or just run the fuck away.
Yeah, or run away suddenly, yeah.
I guess that's all I really came here to say. I just wanted to point out that everybody should, in actuality, if you want to purchase a sword, you should purchase a rapier that's the correct weight for your hand and actually train some basic motions with it instead of acting like a samurai warrior. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to look like a doofus like every other person before you. The end.